Welcome to Thursday Thoughts, your weekly dose of real, honest conversation on all things personal growth. These are the chats Lucy and I love having every week over on Instagram. They're unfiltered, unedited, and always rooted in practical tools and a dose of inspiration. Let's dive in.
I'll let you introduce this because it was your one. I'm just saying, we've literally just come up with this, so God knows where this conversation is going to go.
Well, I was inspired so I suggested to Lucy this morning that we talk about thoughts and thinking, and what inspired me was this little book, which, if you haven't read, have you read this book?
I can't.
Don't believe everything you think by
No.
Joseph Nguyen. I highly recommended it. It'd actually be really good for your book club, Lucy. It's a really short little book on audio. It only takes 2.5 hours to listen to. And the reason I've got this book is Giles, my husband, he just walked past a book, Waterstones, the other day, decided he needed a book, and this is the one that popped out to him. He likes things about thinking, but often quite deep level thinking. And then he picked up this book, and I'm not joking, this book is amazing. Everyone should read this book. This book should be taught in schools. So it's basically, it's all about thoughts and thinking and how thinking is actually the root of a lot of our pain and suffering, if not done correctly. And what I loved about, there's two things I really loved about this, which I wanted to share, which I thought could sort of set us off. One was, it was like it starts off by giving a little Buddhist kind of story, and that is basically where I've lost it now. I don't understand it. That I can't find what it is, but basically when we experience a painful event, let's see if I can find it. It's in the first chapter. When we experience a painful event, basically, there's a Buddhist saying, a Buddhist teaching helps explain this concept. So it's said that 2 arrows fly our way whenever we experience a negative event. So being struck by the first arrow hurts. So that arrow is the pain. The second arrow is our emotional reaction to the first. And often it's even more painful than the first arrow. So that second arrow really is where a lot of our suffering, a lot of our anxiety, a lot of our worrying originates from. But the thing is, what we can do is that we can't always control that first arrow. We can't always control the pain. However, the second arrow is our reaction to the first, and that second arrow is optional. How we feel about the thing which we are going through, how we perceive the event that is happening in that moment. So we've talked about this before, but the lens through which we are seeing the world, which our lens is very individual to us, according to our own stories and circumstances, it's basically how we react to that pain, to that second arrow. But the thing is, we can take steps to really help ourselves with the way that we think about it. And the other thing I just really wanted to bring up, which I just thought was such a good description from this little book, was how he talks about thoughts versus thinking. So he describes thoughts as the energetic mental raw material our minds use to understand and navigate the world. So these are just neutral. They're neutral observations, they're insights, they're intuitive promptings that pop into our minds. So think of thoughts like the nouns. They're just things that come in. And often it takes little to no effort to produce. Sometimes some are really helpful. Some are good. Some are not so exciting, but they just pop in. We can't really control what pops into our mind. However, thinking, on the other hand, is the judgment or the opinion we have about our thoughts. So thinking takes a significant amount of energy, of effort, of willpower, which are finite resources. So you don't have to ruminate on each thought that enters your mind, but when you do, that is thinking. So it's the thinking which often causes us the real issues and the thinking that we get stuck in, rather than the thoughts themselves. The thoughts themselves, actually, we can, get some great thoughts, but it's how we think about them. And a really good example of this is like, if you think about, a dream for the future, what is it? What is your dream? So you might say, my dream to the future is to write a book, for example. So that's your thought. But then if you were to ask yourself, well, how's that going to come about? Well, then you start thinking about that thought, and that's when suddenly all the doubts, the imposter syndrome, all the, the how, when you start thinking about the how, that's when you start going, oh my God, I don't know if I can do that. That just feels like a lot. And we get stuck in that. So what we've got to try and do is release ourselves from the thinking about that thought and just take a step forward towards making it happen, small steps, and not get too worried and get caught up with the thinking. And it's not to say that all thinking is bad. Of course it's not. It's just about not getting caught up in that cycle of constantly thinking about things which are just causing you suffering, which is going over and over again. So that's really what I wanted to talk about. But I would highly suggest this little book, Don't Believe Everything You Think, because it's just what I liked about it is just very simple. It's it's written in a really nice way. It's very easy to understand. It's so accessible. And yeah, really recommend it.
I love the sound of it. And I love what you just said about differentiating between thought and thinking, because I've never thought about it in that way. And what a bloody brilliant way to think about it. And can I just say, by the way, that this is what you and I have talked about so many times before. We've talked about this, and this is a topic that is just, you can't go back to this topic enough. You and I have talked many times on Monday Motivation / Thursday Thoughts about how important it is to be vigilant about your mind. And this is ultimately what it comes down to. And this is what I am obsessed about. I talk about it on my podcast. I talk about it in my membership. It's the idea that if we are not vigilant about what is going on in our minds minute to minute, it's impossible to be mindful of your thoughts every single minute of the day because we're not freaking robots. But if we do not bring awareness to what's going on in our head, and, like that book saying, like examining what are we thinking off the back of a certain thought, we will go into completely unconscious mode. We'll go back into the program. We will be led by all of our subconscious beliefs. We'll go down the negative route. It's just what human beings do. So this is just, it's so, like, you cannot overstate the importance of this. And again, I love that differentiation between thoughts and thinking. One analogy that I love using, and I use it a lot when I'm guiding meditations in my morning routine club, but I always use this analogy, which I absolutely love, because ultimately in meditation, one of the things that I think meditation is so brilliant for, because when you get good at doing this in meditation, you can carry it through to your real life. It's this idea that obviously your book is talking about, that we want to separate ourselves from our thoughts, because at the end of the day, not every fucking thought we have is a fact. Not every thought we have is real. And the analogy that I love to use is to think of our thoughts like the waves on the surface of the ocean. So the waves on the surface of the ocean are constantly moving and changing. Sometimes they're really choppy, sometimes they're calmer, sometimes they're completely mental, they're all over the place. They're constantly moving and shifting. Those are our thoughts on the surface of the ocean. But beneath the surface of the ocean, there is calm, and there is stillness, and there is quiet. And that is our conscious awareness that is separate from our thoughts. So the way that I like to think about it, and the way that, again, I this is how I sort of guide people in meditations, is to imagine that you are the ocean looking up at the waves, and you can simply observe the waves, you can watch them, you can notice them, but you don't have to attach to every single freaking wave that appears on the surface of the ocean. In other words, you do not have to attach to every single thought that appears in your mind. And when you do this in meditation and you become more aware of what's actually going on in your mind, but from a place of separation, you find that gap between the conscious awareness that is the true essence of you and your thoughts. When you are able to find that gap and that separation in meditation, you become better at finding that gap also in your life. And going back to the two arrows analogy, like one thing I will say is that I think it's slightly different when you're talking about something really, really major like grief. But let's put aside really, really, really bad things, because of course that second arrow, we're going to be in pain. But when it comes to day-to-day things, you what? Sorry.
Sorry.
Polly's just running to the door. When it comes to kind of day-to-day things, like this is when thinking about it like this is so helpful, because, for example, you could be at work, you could have a meeting where, let's just say that you're in a meeting and you feel like some guy in the meeting really, puts you down or interrupts you. That's the first arrow. You feel like, oh, you feel wounded, you feel irritated, you feel annoyed. The choice of the second arrow is, are you going to ruminate on that thought that has come into your mind? Like it's made you feel a certain way, it's made you feel irritated, because this, I swear to God, is part of the key of life. It's how are you going to react? How are you going to respond? Are you then going to allow that bloke in that meeting to wind you up for the rest of the day? Are you going to tell everybody about it? Are you going to continue thinking about it? Are you going to continue allowing that to make you feel like shit for the rest of the day? This is ultimately the choice that we have moment to moment every single goddamn day. And the truth is that if you can hone this skill, and if you can practice this art of bringing awareness to your thoughts, you can change your fucking life. Because, as you and I both know, we've been doing this thought work for years now. And I know that because we've talked about it, like not wishing to speak for you, Polly, but I know because we talked about it with each other, both of us have got so much better at recognizing when we're ruminating on something, or when we're thinking about a thought over and over and over and over and over again that is not serving us. Because ultimately, again, not every thought is a fact. You have to differentiate. You have to choose the thoughts that you want to entertain. You have to choose the thoughts that you want to invest your precious time and energy into. And you have to recognize when you are wasting your energy on a thought and subsequently thinking about something that is not freaking helping you. I mean, really, this is everything. It is the key to freeing yourself from being one of those people who allows every little thing to wind them up, which, by the way, I used to be that person 10 years ago. I would allow everything to wind me up. I would take a thought that had come into my head, and I would then translate it into thinking in the context of the book that you're talking about. And I would then end up thinking about this thought and thinking about whatever it was. And I would just drive myself crazy. Yeah. And I'm so pleased that I've, learnt about all of the things that you and I are talking about. And I've got so much better at bringing awareness to what's going on in my mind, because we don't understand how much of an impact our thinking is having on our lives, because the way that we're thinking impacts how we're feeling. How we're feeling impacts how we're behaving, what we say, what we do, and ultimately what we create in our lives. It's just as simple as that.
And once you detach once you stop the thinking about the pain, so back to those two arrows, if something happens and it does cause you pain, whatever that might be, whether that's someone who's pissed you off or whether that is actually, something really terrible which has happened, that's fine. You're going to feel that pain, but you're going to let that pain and that emotion, that's where some emotion will come. I mean, gosh, grief is probably the worst of that. But the moment you start attaching more thinking to that pain, that arrow, that whatever it is, you're going to get stuck in it. So the sooner that we can stop thinking about that first arrow, that pain, the sooner that pain is going to ease. It's not saying that you're not going to get the pain and the feelings. Those feelings are there and there to be felt. But if we can actually stop that thinking about them, then you're gonna move through those painful feelings so much more quickly and allow yourself to kind of recover from them. So it's not saying that you're not going to ever get those emotions. We need those emotions in life because we need unhappiness to tell us if we're in the wrong relationship. We need to feel anger or we need to feel pain if we've hurt ourselves. We need to feel these negative emotions, but what we don't want is to get stuck in them by thinking about those emotions, thinking about the context of those. So it's really about just letting them go. So it's not it's not the external events, it's our thinking about them, which is the real problem. What was the other thing I was going to say about that? Oh, it's completely gone out of my mind. I'm sure it will come back. What was I going to say?
I will only ever recommend brands that I know, love, and use myself. And one of those is Ancient and Brave. Honestly, they've become part of my daily habits. The very first thing I do every morning is pour myself a big glass of water with their true hydration in it. It feels like such a simple ritual, but it really sets me up for the day. And I know I'm properly rehydrating with their blend of electrolytes and minerals, especially before I exercise, which I always do in the morning. Then later on, when I make my coffee, I stir in their true collagen powder into the coffee. Now, it blends in straight away, no fuss, there's no taste, and collagen is something we naturally lose as we age, but it's so important for our skin, joints, and overall vitality. Now, I'll be honest, Ancient and Brave may cost a little more than some of the tubs you'll spot on supermarket shelves, but the difference is you're getting the highest quality ingredients, sourced with integrity and tested to a higher standard, and absolutely no nasties added. That's why I trust them and why I think they're worth every penny. And because I want you to be able to try them out for yourself, I've got a special offer for you. As a listener of this podcast, you can get 20% off your very first order. All you need to do is click the link in the show notes and pop in the code POLYW20 at checkout. They've got more than just collagen and hydration too. They've got creatine, they've got blends, supplements. So it's a perfect chance to explore their range and make the most of that 20% off.
It will come to you.
Oh, it will come to me. It will come to
you.
Go on, you go. Because it will come back.
No, while you're thinking, I was just gonna say again that I know for a lot of people this concept is quite alien. Like, it's really alien if you haven't done any of this work on your mind. It's like, well, it feels alien to suddenly start thinking about your thoughts or bringing awareness to your thoughts, and it's something that does require practice. And it's something, because you're basically, the more that you practice doing this, the more automatic it becomes.
Oh, I just remembered what I was going to say.
Great.
on that because so you obviously can create you need to build that awareness of what is going in your mind. So and really the best way to do that is by getting still, getting quiet, so you can observe what's going on, just witnessing without any sort of judgment. The moment we start judging ourselves, that's when it all goes out the window. But by being kind and compassionate and just noticing what's going on. But then also we need to also translate that to our everyday lives as well. So just by doing 10 minutes of meditation a day, really, it's helpful, but it's not going to stop the thinking about the thoughts. What we then need to do is translate it to our everyday. So so you've got the awareness, you can notice and stop and see, oh my goodness, my mind is really stuck on this one thought. And when you start to notice that, and we've also talked a lot about, often set a little alarm on your phone to remind yourself, just to check in with yourself, where are my thoughts? Or if you're feeling particularly anxious about something, that is a sign. Right, stop yourself, just notice, what are your thoughts? Pause, create space, take a breath. That immediately just gives you that distance between the thought and the thinking. So notice, what is the thought that you're going over and over again? And then just say to yourself, oh my goodness, I'm stuck in thinking. The thinking is causing me suffering. And then from that, what you need to just do is just say to yourself, okay, let's just move on. I'm just going to move on to the next thing. And just take some sort of movement, some sort of action towards something else, which is moving you away from that negative thinking. And that simply sometimes can be just go and put yourself outside for a moment, take a breath of fresh air, move on to a different task, create a little bit of space, move your body, have a glass of water, whatever it might be, but just taking something away, just noticing, I'm stuck in the thinking, I'm going to do something now to do something different.
It's so true that so often, I couldn't agree with you more, because I find that if I find myself ruminating on something, it like if I physically move, like you say, it makes such a difference. So often we just need to physically move our body to shift our energy. It really is that simple often. I mean, I'm not saying that is the fix for everything, but more often than not, if you are stuck in a thinking pattern that is not serving you, something that's making you feel like shit, then more often than not, if you literally go for a walk for 5 or 10 minutes, invariably it really, really does improve it. I find that to be the case more often than not. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing how and also one thing just to point out here is another way that I talk about this is I always say, where are you placing your focus? Like, where is your attention? Because that is what you're thinking about ultimately. So just another question to ask yourself throughout the day, every day, is, what am I focusing on? Where is my attention? Because whatever you are focusing on, that is where your energy is going. So this is just another way of thinking about it. And going back to what you say about reminders, like we've talked about this so many times, but I wonder how many people who listen to this or watch this have actually gone and put reminders in their phone. I'd be really interested to know that. It's such a no-brainer. It's such an easy win. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. But I wonder how many people have actually done that. I'd be really, really interested to know. And I've said this a million times. I have reminders coming up regularly from 6 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night on my phone every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because it is the way to maintain that vigilance and that mindfulness. That is, especially initially when you're just learning this stuff and you're just starting this stuff, you need that thing to remind you. I almost don't need them so much anymore, but certainly when you're starting out on this journey, you really, really need those reminders, even if it means like putting sticky post-it notes on your fridge, on your mirror, in the bathroom, on the front door, just little triggers to remind you to stay aware, just to stay vigilant, and to ask yourself again, where is my attention? What are you focusing on? What are you thinking? And so so often, like, if you're having a day where you're like, oh, I'm just feeling really shit today, like I'm just feeling really down, go, examine what is going on in your mind. Because if you are feeling like shit on a certain day, the reason for that is because of whatever is going on in your head. You're not just feeling shit for no apparent reason. You're feeling crap because of what you are thinking about and how you are thinking about something.
Yeah, and so to add to that, I would say that if you feel like your mind's exploding and you're ruminating, yeah, you need to just pause and create a little bit of space. Take some really slow, deep breaths, because that straight away helps you shift from feeling stressed and anxious to much more relaxed. So that just creates more space. And then it's about coming back into the present moment, because if you're thinking, often when you're thinking, you're either thinking about something in the past which has happened, which you're going over and over again in your head, or you're worrying about something in the future which might happen or might not happen. And think how much energy we all waste worrying about what might and what might not happen. And then inevitably it doesn't happen. And we've just taken up all that space in our mind.
Yeah.
When we bring ourselves back to this moment right here, right now, this present moment, that is reality. What we are here doing now, that is the reality. We're not wasting energy, space, whatever thinking on anything else. We're just here. So ways to do that is literally feel your feet on the ground. You can sort of look around, name 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can touch. It's about bringing yourself back into your senses.
Yeah.
And feeling gratitude is another great way of bringing yourself back to that feeling of presence. Really just take a breath in, feel the air, think about what you have, and those are all really great ways just to ground yourself, bring yourself back here, and kind of help your mind to settle. And it is a practice, and it does take time, and but it is so worth doing it. We both know how worthwhile it is, because it just changes your whole experience of reality, of everything. Because we are, annoyingly, we were programmed to worry, to kind of feel, to think about all these things, because it was back when we used to live in tribes. There were so many issues which were threats to our survival, like the weather, like animals, like not having enough to eat. So we had to work together as a tribe to survive. So you didn't want to do anything too weird or out of the ordinary, or to be cast out, because you just wouldn't have survived. So we had to do everything we possibly could to fit into that tribe so that we were safe. And because we haven't kind of upgraded our systems yet to everyday modern life, we still kind of behave in that way. So we don't like to do anything which is going to make people think of us in a way that we're not part of the group. We don't want to do anything differently. We need to just sort of fit in to survive. So hence, we're programmed to have these thoughts of, oh God, I don't feel good enough I'm worrying what everyone else is going to think. And that's what most of our thoughts are all about, is worrying about other people thinking, or that we don't fit in, or, we're not good enough. And so actually, now we have to do the work ourselves to upgrade our systems, to be able to let go of those out of date programs, so that we can actually feel a sense of peace, of happiness, of freedom, because it's all within us. It's just sort of a letting go process.
Yeah, totally. And going back to what you were saying about bringing yourself back to the moment, those are, such wise words, because and actually what I wanted to add to that is, like, rather than sitting there scrolling on social media, actually, because that ain't going to make anyone feel good, let's face it, actually do something that brings you joy, because the best feeling in the world, and this gets you out of thinking, is when you're doing something that gets you into that flow state where you are not you're almost not thinking. It's like the most amazing thing. Like when you're so, like, I love it when I get in the flow state, and it could be that I'm, writing a podcast episode, or whatever it is. I'm sort of immersed in my work, and there's nothing better than getting into that flow state where you realize that, like you said, you're not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future, because you're so in the moment in the best possible way. That is the best way to get out of that negative thinking mode and get really fully in the present and raise your vibration and bring your nervous system back into balance. Like, physically, mentally, spiritually, being in that flow state is the best thing you can do for yourself, really. So, ask yourself, like, what gets me into that state? Maybe it's painting. It's definitely not for me. I can't paint to save my life. But you know what I mean? Like, what gets you in that flow state? Is it writing a song? Is it playing the guitar? Like, that used to be it for me. I used to write music and play the guitar, and I would just be completely in the moment. I just would love it so much. And is whatever makes you get lost in the moment. And that, it might be just going for a walk in nature and just really observing, like, the birds and the water and the trees and la la la. But whatever gets you into that flow state, that is the best way to get you out of your thinking mind and into your kind of creative mode.
But also,
which is what makes us feel so good,
moving can do that. So, if you look at like athletes, they train, and for a moment, or whether it's a football match or whether it's running a race or whatever it is, they, in that moment which they trained for, they are so in the flow state. They are just letting everything come to that moment and get out of their mind and just trust. It's like you have to have that faith that everything is going to work for you. The moment that an athlete or a dancer or starts thinking about what they're doing, that's when everything starts to go a bit wrong and a bit clunky and doesn't really work, when the thinking mind starts getting involved. When you allow yourself just to flow and be in the moment, that is when you perform at your best.
Yeah, so true.
I mean, I saw it so many times when my son Felix used to do climbing and competitions, and it was always like, just enjoy it, just go for it and enjoy it. And when he did, he was amazing, he climbed his best. But so often, you can see them getting in their minds, and it's like, oh no, it's like, and then it all gets a bit like nothing flows as it should. When it can.
And it is the best feeling, isn't it, when you are in flow? Like, it is the best feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
Anywho, we've gone a minute over. And babe, can you just tell me what the name of the book was, so that when I write the description for this?
Don't Believe Everything You Think.
Don't Believe Everything You Think. By
Joseph Nguyen. Nguyen.
Oh, I'm never going to remember that.
I'll send you a message. Nguyen. Don't believe everything you think.
All right,
Joseph.
Well, we'll be back next week. Talking about God knows what.
All right.
Sending you lots of love.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, babe.
Bye.
Bye. Have a nice day. Bye.